In this lecture, we will go ahead and understand the market forces of supply and demand. Now, this is going to be the backbone of literally every chapter that you're going to see in microeconomics. This is the starting point of you understanding what is demand and what is supply. To begin with, we want to go ahead and understand what is a market. In economics, a market is any place where buyers and sellers meet. Okay. A market can be a physical market. For example, when you go to the vegetable vendors, a market can be that cafe where you go and eat food. A market can be the Amazon place where you go ahead and you buy products online. Market can be big basket where you go ahead and buy grocery. A market can also be something a professional market space like LinkedIn, where people can come put in their resumes, others can go and employ people, naukri.com, etc. Any place where you get a set of buyers, a group of buyers and a group of sellers, wherever these interact, whenever two people come, that is what is a market. So a market is simply, in the most simple term, a group of what? There are buyers, there are sellers. When they interact with each other, then it brings up a market. A competitive market is any market where there is a scope of many buyers being there and many sellers being there. And since there are many buyers and since there are many sellers, each single buyer or seller has a negligible effect on price. So imagine that there are 1,000 buyers of a product, and imagine that there are 1,000 sellers of a product. Even when one buyer leaves the market, or one buyer enters the market, or one seller leaves the market, or one seller enters the market, because these are very small part of a bigger market, they don't have any impact, any effect on the market. The next is called perfectly competitive market. What is a perfectly competitive market? A perfectly competitive market is any market where there is perfect competition. What do I mean with perfect competition? Well, perfect competition means that, first of all, this is foremostly important, that there should be goods which should be the same goods. So we are talking about the same category of goods. So for example, vegetable. So, you're talking about kilos and kilos of oranges, kilos and kilos of tomatoes, kilos and kilos of potatoes. So a competitive market is basically a market where we are talking about goods which are exactly the same, right? I cannot distinguish the first kind of tomatoes from the second vendor selling tomatoes, from the third vendor selling tomatoes, and from the fourth vendor selling tomatoes. So the goods are exactly the same. Secondly, buyers and sellers are so numerous that no one can individually affect the market. And because there are so many people who are buying and selling the product, each individual in themselves is a price taker. So there are two kinds of individuals in a market. One is known as price taker, and the other is known as a price maker. A price maker is when people don't take the price as given. In fact, they dictate what price will be honored in the market. This takes place in case of a monopoly. A monopoly is always a price maker. A monopoly will always tell what price will exist in the market. But so, monopoly is when you have a single, mono means single, poly means single seller, single producer, So whenever we have a single producer, he can tell that this is the price at which I want to sell. So in a monopoly, we have basically a price maker, a single person who is dictating what price will exist for his product. As against that, in case of a perfectly competitive market, we have a price taker. So basically there are so many buyers and so many sellers that each buyer or seller is a very small part of the market. So since they are very small part of the market, therefore they don't have any say in determining the prices. So they don't determine price. Is this fine? So therefore they are just the taker of prices. They will just take price as given. So if everybody is selling tomatoes at ₹10 per kg, this new vendor that will enter the market, he will also sell at ₹10 per kg. He will not have his own say in determining what price will exist in the market. All throughout till the very last. At last, I will start one of the last chapters that I do in my basic microeconomics is going to go ahead and focus on monopoly. But till then, till the point we actually introduce monopoly, we are always going to assume that markets are perfectly competitive, that basically the prices are determined in the market, and from the market any individual person is going to just take price as given. Okay, now let's go ahead and let's talk about what is demand. Demand basically is based on two things, as I always say. So one, demand depends on willingness. Secondly, demand depends on ability. These are the two important things on which any demand will be focused on. Demand will basically depend on willingness, and demand will basically depend on ability. When we talk about willingness, so it's like, for example, let's say that, I can go ahead and let's say I can buy a particular thing. So for example, let's say that I'm very diet conscious, but I can go ahead and I have the money to go ahead and buy any aerated drink. But I am not willing to buy it because I'm very health conscious. So I don't want to go ahead. I want to spend my money on a juice. So although I may have the money to buy it, but I am not willing to buy it. So an important aspect of demand comes from willingness. Even if you may have the money to buy it, are you willing to spend on a particular product or not? That is the demand side. The other part of this is ability. So ability is basically, okay, you may be willing to buy something. I want to buy diamonds. Am I able to buy diamonds or not? No, I don't have the ability to buy it. So I may be willing to do this. I have the willingness, but I don't have the ability to buy it. Only when you are able to buy it and you have the willingness to buy it. I can buy a juice and I am also willing to spend for it. Only when both the things are simultaneously satisfied, then I will demand a commodity. Okay. So what is demand? Demand basically is going to depend on two things. First of all, it is going to depend on willingness. And secondly, it is going to depend on ability. Any individual who has both the willingness and the ability is going to go ahead and is going to buy the product. Buying the product basically is going to, of course, this willingness and ability is related to the price of the product, isn't it? whether I am willing to pay for a particular product and whether I am able to pay for a particular product depends on how is that product priced in the market. So ideally, the quantity demanded of any good is the amount of good that consumers are willing and able to buy at a given price. So at the price that is given to you, what is your willingness to buy and what is your ability to buy? If you're able to do both, how many quantity are you going to do it for? That is going to be quantity demanded. So quantity demanded of any good is the amount of good that the buyers are willing and able to buy. Both the things should be simultaneously there. Law of demand. Now, the law of demand basically says that there is an inverse relationship between quantity demanded and the price of the product, holding other things constant. That is ceteris paribus. So if I hold all other factors constant, like income, like taste and preferences, like all other situations. For example, earlier I might not be willing to buy a mask, but now due to COVID-19, I may be willing to buy a mask. So holding all other factors constant, I am saying that price and quantity demanded, these have an inverse relationship. So the inverse relationship that may exist between price and quantity demanded, this is basically known as the law of demand. But remember, it is ceteris paribus, holding all other factors constant. The demand schedule. Now, if we go ahead and we give this law a mathematical format, if we represent this law with the help of a table that, at a price of 0 rupees, I am willing to demand 16 units. When price increases to 1, I am willing to demand 14. At price of 2, I am willing to demand 12. At price of 3, 10. At price of 4, 8. At price of 5, 6. At price of 6, 4. So, as the price of lattes is increasing, the quantity demanded is decreasing. When I show this in a tabular format, then that table is known as the demand schedule. So what is a demand schedule? It's basically a table. What table? This table shows the relationship between what? Between price of a good and quantity demanded of a good. So that relationship between what price, what quantity demanded, at what price, how much will I be willing to consume and able to consume, that is known as the demand schedule. So for example, here we take an individual Helen and her demand for lattes is given in the schedule, and this shows that her preferences actually obey the law of demand, because clearly as the price is increasing, her quantity demanded is decreasing. So it is meeting the law of demand. Demand curve. When we go ahead and show this demand schedule in the form of a graph, in the form of a diagram, then it becomes a demand curve. So a demand curve is telling me that, okay, when the price is 0, you are demanding 16 units. When the price is 1, then you are going ahead and demanding 14 units. When the price is 2, then you are going ahead and demanding 12 units. When the price is 3, then you are going ahead and demanding 10 units. When the price is 4, then you are going ahead and demanding whatever, how many units? 8 units. So this relationship, that at what price, how much is the quantity demanded, when you show this relationship graphically, then this is known as the demand curve. So the demand curve basically shows a graphical relationship between how much would be demanded at what price. So showing that graphically is known as the demand curve. Now, let us go ahead and introduce market demand. See, when we go ahead and add all the individual demands together at a given price. So for example, when price is 10 rupees, what is the demand by individual A? What is the demand by individual B? What is the demand by individual C? Similarly, if I add all the demands together, then I get the market demand. Similarly, when price is 9, what is demand by A, B, C? I add them together and I get the market demand. So how many ever individuals exist in the market? If you add the quantity demanded by each individual together, then you get the market demand. So the quantity demanded in the market is sum of the quantities demanded by all buyers at each price. So at a given price, let me take the price as 0 rupee. So, at $0, Helen demands 16, Ken demands 8. So the market demand is 24. Then let's take it to be $1. At $1, Helen demands 14, Ken demands 7. So the total becomes 21. Let's take $2. Helen demands 12. Ken demands 6, so total is 18. $3. Helen demands 10. Ken demands 5, so total is 15. So when for each price, we add the quantity demanded of different individuals, then we get the market demand for each price. This is known as the market demand. It is basically nothing but summing the quantity demanded by each buyer together. In our case, of course, we went ahead and we are assuming that there are only two buyers, Helen and Ken. So if you notice, because this is my market demand, what am I doing? I am saying that, okay, at price 0, Helen was demanding 16 units. This was the unit demanded by Helen. And then Ken demanded another 8 units. So I add 8 to this. So 16 and 8 more, which makes me to 24. So this is the market demand. Similarly, at $1, Helen was demanding 14 units. So Helen was demanding 14 units. And to these 14, I went ahead and I added 7 more. So I went to 7 more and I got 21 units. So this is the demand of the market. So, if I go ahead and I draw Helen's demand curve, it would be something like this. At $2, Helen was demanding 12 units. So somewhere over here. At $3, Helen was demanding 10 units. So somewhere over here. At $4, Helen was demanding 8 units. So somewhere over here. And at $5, Helen was demanding 6 units. So somewhere over here. Right? So if you notice, the demand curve of Helen is much steeper than the market demand curve. Why? Because market demand curve will always be flatter. This will be flatter. Why? Because it is basically adding some more amount for the same price. Because to Helen, I have also gone ahead and added Ken's demand. So, at the same price, I have added some more amount. At the same price, I have added some more amount equivalent to Ken's demand. So, this becomes flatter and this becomes steeper. Right? So market demand is basically adding the two demands together to get the third demand. So you can say that, okay, if, this is the demand curve of individual A and this is the demand curve of individual B, we are going to pick up any price, see how much is A demanding, see how much is B demanding. We are going to add A plus B at that price. And after adding A plus B together, we are going to get how much is market demanding, where this is going to be QA plus QB. Again, at any other price, we will find how much is A demanding. At this price, how much is B demanding. We add them together to get how much is the market demanding. So market is basically adding the demand of two individuals.